Good evening, bonsoir, namaste. Dear Excellencies, we have a few ambassadors, and I was joking, we are almost more ambassadors than public, but you know, today we can say we have the quality more than the quantity. Thank you to all of you for being here, sirs. And we will tell which embassy are you coming from. We are still waiting the ambassador of European Union to India, because it was, you know, he went to Cervantes Institute, but obviously everything, it's under the Spanish language and the Spanish, as you can see, the Spanish government was also maybe, he thought that it was an institute. First of all, thank you to everybody. I know that more will come, but we will like to start now because I'm sure that everybody's got a busy schedule tonight. And again, thank you very much for being here. So we are very honored at the Alliance Française, as I was saying, to host the closing events of this 2-month project, Eulat, Europe, Latin America, and India. It has been, this project was selected, India's project, was selected in last April. And I have to say that in the last 2 months, it's quite amazing the number of events that we managed to organize. We have a football tournament, a mela, competitions, talks, etc. Today I hope it's going to be a fun event. Of course we have a few speeches because it's important to conclude it, and I think that many things have to be said. And of course we'll have also have some entertainment with a great guitarist. And Ayushi here will be your masters, our master of ceremony. Do we say, I will say MC because I don't know if master is, so she will be our MC for tonight, and I will let her introduce the rest of the evening. My colleague Oscar is around. I don't see him, sorry, with the light. Will do the vote of thanks. But here I would like to thank 2 people whose energy, hard work, etc., have been made possible this series of events. Ayushi here, that I already briefly introduced. She's from Global Youth, and sorry, and you graduated. And also Mitushi, who is the head of the cultural department of Alliance Française, and I really want to thank very much these 2 very hard-working persons. A round of applause to both of them. And Oscar will thank all other people, all around people. This evening, I said I would like it to be a fun one. So we have a few, not speeches, but few words said by the few ambassadors and from the embassy who have been very active in this project. And this project, of course, maybe, I'm sure that's the last event, so many of you have been able to follow the few events I just mentioned. But this project was, in fact, launched in Europe to, let's say that to increase the relationships, the cultural dialogues between the youth of the 3 continents. Europe, Latin America, and of course, India, and I say it's almost a continent as we agree about that. After these few addresses, we'll have a few special remarks, by Dr. Ash Naren, the director of the Institute of Social Sciences. And of course, these different events, and of course the launch of magazine, but that's a surprise that I will leave Ayushi enveloped to... You see what I mean? Yes, thank you. And these different events will, between these different events, we'll have our talented artist. You can see that there's already his shares there. Now, as I promised, I don't want to be too long, so I will leave Ayushi to call the ambassadors, a few ambassadors and the people who are going to say a few addresses. So thank you to all of you again.
Warm greetings to one and all present today. On behalf of the European Union National Institutes for Culture Delhi Cluster and Alliance Française de Delhi, I, Ayushi Kapoor, heartily welcome all the ambassadors, high commissioners, diplomats, directors, professors, academicians, and students. The interaction of the three regions in the past and contemporary times have extensively influenced the idea of today's closing ceremony by UNIC Delhi cluster. And therefore, I would like to thank everyone for their invaluable inputs and presence. I would like to begin by expressing my heartfelt gratitude to Mr. Stefan, Director, and Ms. Mitushi Khurana, Head of Culture and Communication and Administrative Staff of Alliance Française de Delhi, for hosting us and facilitating this series of enlightening discussions through their constant guidance and support. To bolster the relationships that have been forged through this project, today's gathering will be addressed by the ambassadors and first secretaries. It is my distinguished honor to invite the ambassador of Embassy of Dominican Republic, Mr. David Puig, Ambassador Mr. Alberto A. Guini, Embassy of Uruguay, Mr. Fabio, First Secretary, Embassy of Peru, and Dr. Ash Narayan on the stage for their remarks. Thank you, everyone. To begin with, we have His Excellency Mr. David Puig from Embassy of Dominican Republic. He'll be sharing his view from the perspective of Dominican Republic.
Hello? Yes. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Alliance Française, for hosting tonight the closing ceremony, and thank you very much, Ayushi, for having included me as one of the panelists or as one of the persons that will address you tonight, and to give my perspective on what this series of events has been from the perspective of the Dominican Republic. Well, I can just say that very sincerely, it's been, I would say, a wonderful experience to be involved in this project. And I'm not saying this because the Dominican Republic was actively participating in different events of this program, but I say it because in the different events I attended, in all of them, I didn't attend all of them, but in all of the ones I attended, there were quite, I would say, insightful moments, or moments that were quite memorable. I mean, things were said that I kept on thinking after I came back home, and so I felt that in the conversations that were had between young people from Latin America, Europe, and Dominican Republics, in the panels between intellectuals, there were things that were important that were said. And I will just share with you 2 or 3 of those things, and which are the ones that I'm, let's say, taking back or retaining, keeping with me out of all the events that were held. I will first of all go back to the inauguration, and I'll quote or remember some things said by Dr. Oscar Pujols. That day he compared or made a comparison between multicultural societies and multicultural individuals. And he said that we live in multicultural societies, which means that, we are confronted daily with people from different communities. It's the case in India, it's the case in Europe. And it's something that in many contexts and for many people, at the end, it's quite uncomfortable or challenging, right? But he opposed to the fact of living in multicultural society the idea that we should be multicultural individuals. And that means, or how do we achieve that? Being multicultural individuals means, from his perspective, to be able to embrace oneself, to be able to embrace different cultures without losing its own roots, to be able to understand other cultures, to be able to speak different languages, right? And how do we achieve that? Well, we achieve that by learning other languages, but I think, mainly by traveling, and by traveling for extensive periods of time, by staying in other countries, and by, becoming a little bit also part of the country that we are visiting or that we are traveling to. And I think that's something that really resonates with the work many of our embassies are doing. And I mean, in particularly the Embassy of the Dominican Republic, we have been pushing and trying to convince our authorities that it is worth for our students to come and travel to India. Dominican Republic has quite a generous grant program for students to go and study abroad, their masters and their PhD. And unfortunately, we've never really considered coming to this side of the world for our students. I mean, the world is as if the world for us stopped in Europe, and we've never thought that there were great universities in this side of the world that have a very good level. And we've been really pushing very hard for our Ministry of Higher Education to send students to the great universities that you have in India. And that, I mean, for our people, for the Dominican people, to become multicultural citizens with an Indian component, not necessarily with another Latin American component or an European component. So that's one thing I'll retain from the sessions. Second thing that really touched me is in the interactions between the students. When we had students from Latin America, students from Europe, students from India, talking about their experiences of traveling to another country and studying in those countries. And I remember in particular a young lady from Brazil that was sitting in the panel. And she had lived for a few years in India with her parents, who were diplomats. And when her parents had to move back to their countries, she had to decide whether she will follow them to Brazil or to whatever countries they were going to go, if she was going to go to Europe or to the United States to continue her higher education, or if she was going to stay in India. And she told us that day that her decision was to stay in India. And I thought that was, I mean, of course, that's quite brave, because you come from the other side of the world, you're here for a few years, but then you make a conscious choice to study here. And that means when you make that choice, that you are valuing what India has to offer you, but also that you see as a young person that what India has to offer you is part of what the future of the world is, that it is something that will give you a plus in the world of tomorrow. And I think that this is something that we all have to recognize, and that we all have to explain in our countries, so that it is understood that this side of the world, this part of the world, is part of what the 21st century is. And the third moment, I will say it in plural, that I want to share is, of course, the festival and the football game. The festival, why? Because we had in our booth bachata music. We had in our booth music from the Dominican Republic, but there was also a Latin band playing. And I thought it was, I mean, that we achieved that day what this whole project was about, when we saw that young people from India were dancing to the Latin American tunes. I mean, it could have been Spanish songs, it could have been songs from anywhere else in the world, but the fact was that we were speaking the same language, right? I mean, that through music, through a rhythm coming from another part of the world, we were in sync. And I think that day, I mean, it was a good example of what we can achieve through these kind of events. And of course, football. I mean, I have to talk about football because, I mean, it was quite a surprise. I played, and it was quite a surprise that we won as Dominican Republic. But but it's a surprise, and many people have asked me, like, but how come you play football, right? I mean, Dominican Republic, we played baseball. But this question being asked to me repeatedly brought to me a personal story that I would like to share, and I will conclude by that. I mean, as I said, football is not common in the Dominican Republic, but my parents, when I was 5, 6 years old, decided to enroll me in a football school. And the football school they chose was, let's say, coming from a privileged background, as I come, they enrolled me in the school where kids like me were supposed to go. So I played there for 2, 3 years. It was a school headed by an Argentinian football player. But at a point, I don't know how I come into contact with a school from a very popular neighborhood. I mean, from a poor neighborhood in the Dominican Republic, a football school. And I told my parents, well, you know, I don't want to go to that school with the Argentinian man. You know, I want to go to this school and I want to continue playing football with the kids. And my parents told me, well, okay, if that's what you want, you'll go there. And throughout the years that I play football, I play with that school, which was called Los Buitres. And football became to me a little bit, and it's still for me the symbol of you know, this space where people of different social means, people of different class, people of different race can come together and can, you know, can be together, can play, can spend a good moment. And for me, football has always been that. And while playing the other day with people from so many countries, I was really reminded of that spirit. And I thought it was also thanks to the project that we've all been involved, a very nice moment that we spent together. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ambassador, for sharing your views. Now we have Mr. Ugo Astuto, the Ambassador of European Union to delegation, to share his remarks with us.
Thank you very much. Well, I shall be very brief, and I'm afraid not as passionate as my good friend from the Dominican Republic, because I'm here simply to thank the organizer and all participants for their contribution to this very successful initiative. So these are an initiative that we have supported as European Union in order to build bridges between Latin America, the European Union and India. There are a number of convergences which I think have become pretty evident, particularly after such a rich program. And let me simply add that it's particularly fitting that it concludes today, because the High Representative for and Vice President of the Commission, Borrell, as we speak, is in Latin America. And he visited Uruguay and Argentina. He participated in the gathering of the foreign minister of CELAC, and what he clearly stated that we want to relaunch our partnership with Latin America. And guess what? He identified 2 or 3 points which are actually pretty relevant also for India. We want to relaunch our political dialogue. We want to relaunch people-to-people contacts, and we want to work together to address global challenges, such as the digital transition or fighting climate change. And all this based on our common values, particularly our democratic values, our strong belief in the need for an open and plural society. So I think that's the spirit also underpinning the initiative, and I'm very happy to see that it has been successful and entertaining at the same time. And I hope that's the spirit that will continue to live in bringing Europe, Latin America, and India together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador, for sharing your remarks. Now we have the Ambassador, Mr. Alberto Eguini from Embassy of Uruguay.
Thank you. Good evening. I am very glad that you were talking before about soccer or football, because I don't know if you know that we always say that every Uruguayan first is a politician, second is a soccer or football coach. And we all think that we have always an opinion about football It's very important that we do that in India, where cricket is so important. And for us, since we soon in November, we're going to start the World Cup in Qatar, which is the first time it's going to be in Asia. It's going to be closer to India, and it's going to be closer to our views and everything. So I think it's going to be a good time to start revaluing that also in India. The ambassador was talking about the purpose of Eulat, that is to build bridges. And of course, that is where I think I go a little bit back to a meeting we had in the Cervantes Institute, where the ambassador of Spain was talking about the fact that he had placed an invitation to Minister Yashankar to assist into the Ibero-American summits. And of course, I think that the Ibero-American community has a word behind all this. And of course, we always thought, I was previously ambassador of Uruguay in Germany, and there they had a fantastic institute, the Ibero-American Institute in Berlin, which happens to be the institute or the organization outside of Spain that has the biggest library in the Hispanic world, which is something very interesting that someday we will probably imitate in India. And I think that the fact of believing in building bridges is what we need to do. We need to reflect on that, about the fact of the Ibero-American, the inclusion of India into that community, and the fact that we need also to have India much more engaged in our region. I think it is a very important matter that it participates also, like for example in the Ibero-American Bank, that it would also participate in other institutions. We need to have India a much stronger presence among the Ibero-American community, because I think that, of course, we have many differentiations. India is a culture of more than 5,000 years. We have at least 500 and more, but that is not in question, because the original cultures in the Americas were much more before the Spanish came. So we know that we also have a great baggage and accumulation of iconic cultures that need to be put together, and those bridges need to interact, and at the same time be the reflection of what we need. So I thank very much of the Alliance Française. I think also the Goethe Institute and the Instituto Cervantes and all the cultural institutes of the European Union in India have been a great support, that we need them. We need to have them engaged and involved and compromised in all these different projects. And Eulat is a very, very, very interesting accumulation of desire and of wishes of putting together what the ambassador also said, the fact that there needs to be a bigger approach towards Latin America, and that already important union there is, not only in culture, but even in affection that we have, because we come as immigrants from Europe, especially to the New World, and we mixed with the original populations. So we think that we need to reconvene and all that. And I very much hope that we can keep on going with this project in future editions, because we need more of that, and we need a brighter and more stronger presence of our region in India, at the same time that we need India more compromised in our region. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador, for sharing your views. Now we have Mr. Fabio, the first secretary from Embassy of Peru.
Thank you, Yushi, distinguished ambassadors, fellow diplomatic colleagues, Monsieur Stéphane and Malia. Señor Oscar Puyol, dear students, ladies and gentlemen. So first of all, I would like to start my intervention by thanking deeply all the organizers and conveying the deep appreciations to the EU Institute of Culture for the organization of the Eulat for Culture project, which has been such an amazing 2 months of covering different areas of engagement between our countries and the Indian youth at different levels. Now, we've covered with the first event and with the roundtable discussion the more academic side of the engagement. We've also looked at the human side when we invited the students and in general the people who had an previous experience in India and in Latin America to exchange their views on how different their cultures were, but at the same time so close in terms of culture, in terms of cultural intercommunication. We've had an expression of culture and an exchange of culture, I should say, when we had the fest, we had exposure, we had many things. It's been a complete project and it could not have been done without the help of every person who was engaged in the project. So thank you for all of that. So we've been asked to comment on how the development of relations between India, Europe, and the LAC region have developed. And I just wanted to briefly recall one of my first experiences when I arrived here to India in 2018. That was the writing of a book. So during the whole year, we gather materials all from our archives, the Indian archives, and different places to build a sort of anthology of the Peruvian and Indian relationships over the past 55 years. And what we discovered is that really the relationships between Peru and India, and not only Peru and India actually, the Latin American countries and India date far beyond what we usually think about. Peru and India have formally established diplomatic relations 59 years ago. We are about to be 60 years old in diplomatic relations. But already in 1857, we've had a naval vessel called the BAP Amazonas, which stayed in Kolkata for almost 3 months. And by 1897, Peru had nominated a vice consul in Kolkata. It's important to remember that we became members of the League of Nations in 1920, and that we were also founding members of the United Nations in 1945. So I'm going to be coming back often to this fact. It's almost 60 years ago that we started our diplomatic relations. And talking about my country in particular, if we talk about the current relation between Peru and India, we're looking at more than 30 bilateral agreements that were signed between our countries that are in different areas, ranging from defense, education, renewable energies, and traditional knowledge. And in recent years, our ties with India have been surging also on the bilateral trade side, which has rebounded after the pandemic, having achieved its biggest value in 2021. We also have relations in the area of investments with companies such as TCS, Bajaj, Mahindra, that are well established in Peru, and Peruvian companies in mining, Reliant Drilling, and in manufactured products, which is AGE Group, also having a foothold in India. So this is in broad strokes what our relationship currently looks like. And I'm giving this a snapshot because I want to say that against this backdrop, the importance of the Eulat for Culture project for Peru lies truly at the intersection between our goal as an embassy to foster intercultural communication with the Indian public, especially the youth, and connecting our cultures through culture. That's basically it. So I think that it's hard to overstate the importance of this element, culture, not only in terms of soft power, but also in terms of linking the peoples of our regions together. No? So here I just want to mention that India has really garnered the admiration from Peru for many centuries. No? At the beginning of the 20th century, Rabindranath Tagore was already very well read and studied in Peru. And nowadays, Peruvians are already taken into their lifestyles, the practice of yoga, for example, and they're actively watching and enjoying Bollywood movies. Many come to India in search of spirituality and peace. And in the same vein, Peruvian culture is making headways into the Indian psyche, with many tourists being allured by the ancient Incan civilization and the legacy of monuments such as Machu Picchu and the Nazca Lines. So part of all this soft power was something that we were able to see during the course of the project. Especially, I think it comes to mind the example of that Ambassador Guani gave during the fest. In the fest, we were able to see that beyond all our borders, our different countries that we represent, we were able to be united by the same language, that was music, for example. We were united through food, we were united to our cultural expressions, and everybody had a good time, and we were able to enjoy truly what it means to have intercultural communication. So, coming back to the celebration of the 60 years of diplomatic relations, I think it's just natural to say that our embassy will focus our efforts in continuing promoting culture for 2023. No? So I had a couple of good announcements for next year. We have already planned a visit of our Goodwill Ambassador, the flagship vessel, the VIP Union, to the historic port of Goa. We will be also graced with the presence of Ms. Ana Maria Cogorno, who is an archaeologist who has studied the legacy of the Nazca Lines in February. We will also be returning to Kolkata to participate in one of the biggest literature festivals in Asia, the Kolkata Book Fair. Our aim is also to diversify the areas, the cities where we do the engagements with India. We want to branch out of Delhi and extend and build bridges in other cities in this country. We're planning a tourism event in Chennai. We want to host the third Peruvian Gastronomy Festival in December this year. We're bringing one of the largest religions processions in the world, the Lord of Miracles, to India. And coming back to the relationship with the youth, we are actively working with schools and universities, both private and public, to make sure that we're keeping this intercultural connection alive and well. So, coming back to the main focus of tonight, I just want to once again highlight that the Eulat for Culture has been such an amazing opportunity to take stock and see and reflect about how much our different regions are connected and how much more work lies ahead to build the bridges that we want to see to for our cultures to grow stronger and to build excellent relationships between Latin America, Europe, and India. Thank you so much.
It was truly an enriching experience to hear the perspectives and stories of all the dignitaries. Now, I would like to invite Mr. Stefan to felicitate the dignitaries for today's closing ceremony. We have.
Yes, I think it's a very nice Indian tradition to felicitate, of course, all speakers and all the dignitaries who grace this special occasion by their presence. So I would like you to stay on stage and to call Mr. Juan Angulo, Ambassador of Chile, on stage, Mr. Guillermo Chavez Conero, Political Counselor of the Embassy of Mexico, and I don't have the name of the others, but I will. The political, the head of the political affairs from Brazil, from the Embassy of Brazil. You know, it's quite important that all the embassies who are participated to this great project are on stage. And if I'm not wrong, we have with us the High Commissioner of Jamaica. Left, okay. Did I forget somebody? No. And I will now invite my friend Oscar, mio amigo, to help me to felicitate all these dignitaries. Thank you.
When words fail, music speaks. It soothes the mind and gives it a rest, heals the heart and makes it whole, and flows from heaven to the soul. Aditya Naguin has been studying the Spanish classical guitar for about a decade now, an alumnus of the prestigious Delhi School of Music. He obtained the ATCL diploma in classic guitar in 2019. Apart from his Spanish guitar credentials, he has been playing the electric bass guitar professionally for the last 5 years, working as a freelance musician. The beautiful compositions of Spanish and Latin American composers ultimately led him to also start studying Spanish in the year 2015, in order to interpret many intricate work of music through the eyes of the composer himself. Having performed in venues like Indian Habitat Center, India International Center, Instituto Cervantes, and ICCR Kolkata, he focuses on sharing the love of Western classical music, a genre somewhat unknown to the Indian audience, with special emphasis on Spanish classical music, a genre which never ceased to enthrall the listeners till date. We have Mr. Aditya.
evening, everyone. Buenas tardes, buona tardi, buon après-midi, and Shubhratri. So, yeah, like we are here in this event called Eulat, Europe and Latin America. So, of course, I'll be playing some music for you guys from Europe, from Spain, and of course, I'm in Alliance Française, so of course, I'll play a piece from France. And in my next turn, I'll play two pieces from Latin America. And yeah, thank you so much to Instituto Cervantes for having me here, to Oscar, to Marti, to the cultural director. And yeah, it's been an honor to be playing in front of you. I hope you enjoy it. So the first piece that I'm playing, it's called Prelude Number 1 in E minor by the Brazilian composer Heitor Villa-Lobos. So yeah, he fused Brazilian folk music and European classical music. So he mixed the two styles and he created music that has not ceased to enthrall listeners till date, and I hope you like it. It's the first prelude of his series of 5 preludes for the guitar. So this is Prelude Number 1 in E minor. Just a second, I'll take 10-15 seconds to tune my guitar. that was Prelude number 1. And the next piece I play from a French composer from Paris. His name was Roland Dion. And he composed a piece called Waltz in Sky. I don't know how to pronounce that because I don't speak French. Waltz in Sky translates to a cheap imitation of the waltz. Yeah. So Roland Dion was a French musician, and he infused a lot of jazz, Brazilian folk music to classical music. And in this piece, which includes a lot of elements of dissonance, Brazilian folk music, and dynamic changes, he tries to do a cheap imitation of the waltz. So, Waltz in Sky. I'll be playing the other two pieces in a while from Latin America.
Thank you, Aditya, for a melodious composition. Without further ado, now I would like to call upon stage Dr. Ash Narayan. Ash Narayan Roy is a PhD in Latin American Studies from Jawaharlal Nehru University, Delhi. He spent more than 4 years at the prestigious El Colegio de Mexico City as visiting scholar in the early 1980s. He worked with Hindustan Times as senior editor from 1990 to 2001. In 1999, the Matias Romero Institute, Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Mexico, invited him on a 6-week lecture tour. In 1996, Roy was selected by the UN to visit Athens, Cairo, and Amman as a member of the fact-finding news mission on the question of Palestine. He was the member of the international team to observe the Sri Lankan parliamentary elections in August 2015. Roy has authored and edited several books, published dozens of papers in national and international journals, and presented numerous papers in international seminars and conferences on media, Latin American affairs, democracy, local government, federalism, globalization, and foreign policy. He has contributed to the encyclopedic publications Guais del Tercer Mundo and Yearbook of the Muslim World. Roy is a member of the advisory board of several universities and think tanks and members, editorial board of several journals. He is a columnist of the Statements newspaper. He is currently the director of Institute of Social Sciences, New Delhi. It is indeed a pleasure to have you, Dr. Ash Narayan. Now, I would like to request you to come on the stage and share your views with us.
Okay. Thank you very much. It's doubly challenging for me to speak after the eminent diplomats and then such lovely compositions. Well, I feel that the unique Eulat 4 Culture project, the way forward, has been a journey. It has had, I would say, rather a dream run. But the cinema goers know how the dream of sequence comes to an end when the lights are on. And I think I will see in a way that the lights are on for the project. So this project has to now become collective waking dream. It's a moment of reflection. It's a moment of acknowledgement, gratitude, but also a celebration. Dr. Oscar Puzel has asked me to say a few words about the tasks that we have before. Let me, on this occasion, recall the words of eminent Mexican poet Octavio Paz, which he uttered while receiving the Nobel Prize 20 odd years ago and all. He said, there are two thankless, rather weightless words called thank you, which all men, I'm quoting, so I would have otherwise said men and women, which all men have uttered since the dawn of humanity. And I think this is the moment to say that thank you. But I will do the thanking job a little later. Let me first reflect on the way forward. India and Latin America, as well as Caribbean, so each time I speak Latin America, I mean also the Caribbean. They have many things in common. The millennial culture, the aspirations, the struggles, the solidarity, but also certain art of living. Both have refused to live in an abandoned horizon or isolated islands. If India is a land of million mutinies, Latin America is perhaps another name for resistance, rebellion, and revolution. What unites us are the library of ideas, our epistemologies, but also our stories. There is nothing in the world which is more powerful than a good story. But we also have two more things that unite us. And these are the Latin words, libido sciendi, that means the lust to know, and sapere augere, that is dare to know. I would go to the extent of saying that India and Latin America quite often dare to even go wrong. Both India and Latin America have engaged Europe in very meaningful ways. India and Europe, and Latin America and Europe are living in the intersection of cultures and languages. The interactions between the both have been painful but also gainful. It is like entering the river. When you enter the river changes you, but you also change the river. Each time we are talking about Latin America's European connection, we often talk about Spain and Portugal, but forget France, forget the Netherlands, even the UK, and perhaps many others. Because there are territories, whether it is Guadeloupe, Guyana, Martinique, and all that, were very much part of overseas departments of France, even till date. Similarly, Dutch Caribbean, and you have constituent countries like Curaçao, San Martin, Aruba, and all that. Now, how are we linked? Part of European world and ideas are included in the Latin American and Indian worlds. Through history, through language, through religion, but also through political institutions. But Latin America as India's words cannot be reduced to Europe's. Scottish intellectual John Law puts it succinctly. He said, this is included in that, but this can't be reduced to that. K.M. Panikkar, a great Indian diplomat who wrote that India had difficulties in stretching out beyond its neighbors, because it felt, because of its size, it sufficed unto itself. On the other hand, there is another thing that both India and Latin America have done. There is a book by British historian John Eliot. He says that there are two kinds of nations, the chosen nation and the victim nation. The chosen nation thinks that it has the spiritual, biological, even racial characteristics to dominate the world. This is how most of the colonial powers were. But a victim nation, on the other hand, tends to blame others for its own mistakes and refuses to own. Now, India never pretended to belong to either. Gandhi, Tagore, and Nehru gave India a vision to be a class of its own. Nationalism of Gandhi and Tagore was based not on a sense of persecution, nor a sense of civilizational or cultural superiority. Latin America, on the other hand, in the beginning certainly, was virtually a secondary region because of its geographic location, historical subordination to the United States, and distance from the Eurasian landmass. There was a serious campaign in 1945 to make Brazil the 6th permanent member of the Security Council. But the invitation never arrived. In August 1950, US had supposedly offered to assist India to become a permanent member. But Nehru was a great moralist. He says, for the sake of international peace, it is the communist China which should be made a member. That is not to say that India would have actually become, because we are not counting on who would have vetoed and all that. There is a diplomatic saying that if you are not at the table, you may be part of the menu. But both India and Latin America created their own high tables and refused to be on anyone's menu. India spearheaded the non-aligned movement. Latin America also joined it. Some joined late. But Latin America became a leader in institutionalized multilateral diplomacy. Simon Bolivar organized the Congress of Panama in 1826 to bring together the new republics to have a unified policy on common military, common defense, and supranational parliamentary assembly, much before European Union. The 1948 Pact of Bogota is considered the most comprehensive treaty for dispute settlement in the world. The Tlatelolco Treaty of 1967, which created the entire Latin American Caribbean region as the first nuclear-free zone, is indeed the first ever in the world, for which Garcia Robles, Mexico's foreign policy, was awarded the Nobel Prize. Now, historically, India's engagement with Latin America resembled a long-standing marriage in which partners keep breaking new promises while the frustrated bride turns to the other suitors. There was another problem. India did engage Latin America and did establish diplomatic ties, but there was a big gap. It did not address the gap between the politics of ideas and the politics of presence. In a major policy statement, Dr. Jayashankar has said, and I quote, "It is time for India to engage America, manage China, cultivate Europe, reassure Russia, bring Japan into play, draw neighbors in, expand the neighborhood, and expand traditional constituencies of support." I am inclined to believe that when Dr. Jayashankar speaks of America, he means Americas. Both India and Latin America face not so much the end of history, but rather the return to history. There are three critical assets to great power: reliability, credibility, and alliance cohesion. India has the ingredients to become a global power, but I believe India must strive to become a smart power. Way forward. Joseph Stiglitz says that the only way forward is the rebirth of history. I would like to say that for our mission, the way forward, it should be to create a new history. It is also time to ask questions. Does India figure in Latin America's policy debates? Has Latin America become what IDB announced 10 years ago, India's next big thing? Should India come out with a white paper on Latin America? Should Prime Minister Modi undertake frequent visits to Latin America? I'm happy we have a large number of students and youth. You must ask questions, because good questions is the result, rather good research is the outcome of good questions. At a time when our trade and economic exchanges have acquired some kind of salience, two things have to be avoided: the snake oil profiteering and cherry picking. The old matrix of donor-recipient relationship is also no good. Practically, there is no donor who only gives, and there is no recipient who only receives. If India and Latin American ties have to become a collective dream, it would need a new compass to walk the path towards the future. Reckless optimism and reckless despair need to be avoided. What we should do to cultivate the three-way policy is what Habermas calls thinking and acting without losing the utopian impulse. After all, what is utopia? We may not find utopia, but we may stumble in its general direction. The only thing we never get enough is love. But the only thing we also don't give enough is love. But the good news is that we Indians have started loving Latin America. The music, the food, literature, Mexican tacos and Corona beer, but also Chilean and Argentinian wines, Cuban cigar, and maybe Colombian chamela, the swimwear. Allow me to talk about myself a little. My strength is that I love Latin America. My weakness is that I love it too much. Latin America's charm is infectious. It steals your heart. As Neruda would say, es tan corto el amor y es tan largo el olvido. Love is so short, forgetting is so long. But as lovers know, love has an expiry date. Diplomacy too has its expiry date. Before the deed comes the doing. Time has come to do the doing. The Eulat for Culture project has shown us the way. One dream, different dreaming. I hope the upward trend in India-Latin American ties isn't like the early morning river mist, which momentarily rises but dissipates with the first sight of contrary breeze. During our two roundtables, many innovative ideas have come up. Let me mention only two. Ambassador Jose Maria Ridao, while referring to the three-way engagement, came out with a brilliant term. He said, circle without a center. This is exactly what Gandhi had said when he talked of oceanic circle of complete equality. So it is the equality as a principle which will be the basis of this three-way engagement. Ambassador Jorge Hein, he talked about the need for both India and Latin America to follow a policy of positive, is the word, active non-alignment. And I think Latin America did pursue active non-alignment. I have an example of Mexico. Mexico was very active, but refused to become a member of the non-aligned movement. It said, we are too non-aligned to be aligned, even with the non-aligned. So I think Latin American countries had some of the reservations, but much later, there was Latin Americanization of NAM, and I think this is for good reason. Let me end by thanking, before Oscar does the detailed thanking, but I must also thank the Spanish Embassy and the Instituto Cervantes for undertaking this timely project, all the stakeholders, unique embassies of Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Peru, Mexico, Dominican Republic, Costa Rica, Portugal, Alliance Française, Karmois, Pre-Helvetia, Hungarian Cultural Center, Jesus and Mary College, and the Institute of Social Sciences deserve to be congratulated. But last but not the least, it is, let me thank Ayushi Kapoor for very dynamically anchoring this project. Last word. Miguel de Cervantes and Diego Velázquez are still very relevant. As Carlos Fuentes wrote a while ago, well, decades ago, and I quote, Cervantes teaches us to read anew. Velázquez teaches us to see anew. Our project, The Way Forward, teaches us to imagine anew. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ash, for an enlightening overview of the multilateral relations. Your views were quite enthralling, and I hope the audience enjoyed his views. In the era of globalization and modernity, nations around the world have formed a common village in which these nations cooperate, coordinate, and create a platform for a more flexible regime to negotiate in the political and socio-economic spheres. The growing sense of sovereignty around the globe and a common feeling of moving together to form strong multilateral relations have created a sense of collective conscience amongst the nations. With this goal in mind, I'm pleased to present the first ever magazine of the unique Eulat for the Way Forward Culture Project, Delhi Cluster. The title of the magazine is Unfolding Potentials, a Spectrum of Opportunities through the Lens of India, Europe, and Latin America, covering diverse themes. I believe the magazine provides a platform for key experts and the youth to share their knowledge and skills. The magazine has been founded to further the vision of uncovering the potential of multilateral relations by encouraging research and writing. It also reinstates the objective of amplifying young voices in shaping the forthcoming future. The first edition of the magazine outspreads readers' cognizance of India-Europe Latin America relations with avenues relating to defense, culture, education, history, etc. With the help of articles and the interviews, the hope is to introduce the readers to the various perspectives on the relations between the three distant regions. While largely focused on India, the editorials also explore Europe and Latin America's presence in Asian continent across the aforementioned tenets of international relations. I consider myself fortunate enough to have been trusted by the embassies, cultural institutions, and peers to publish the work in the first edition of the magazine of the project. The content of the magazines are as follows. Special acknowledgement. I am highly indebted to the European Union National Institutes for Culture, Brussels, Delhi Cluster, and EECID, Spanish government, for their extraordinary support and guidance for providing us with the opportunity to begin the initiative of establishing the magazine. I would also like to express my heartfelt gratitude to the ambassadors, head of missions, charge d'affaires, diplomats, and directors of Alliance Francaise de Delhi, Cameo Centro Cultural Portuguese, Pro Helvetia, List Institute, Instituto Cervantes, Institute of Social Sciences, Embassy of Brazil, Embassy of Chile, Embassy of Colombia, Embassy of Costa Rica, Embassy of the Dominican Republic, Embassy of Mexico, Embassy of Spain, Embassy of Peru, European Union Delegation to India, Embassy of Cuba, Embassy of Uruguay, Embassy of Czech Republic, Embassy of Guatemala, Embassy of El Salvador, Embassy of France, Embassy of Ireland, Embassy of Switzerland, Embassy of Argentina, and Goethe Institute for their kind cooperation and encouragement that helped in the completion of the magazine. In particular, Dr. Oscar Pujol, Director, Instituto Cervantes, New Delhi, India, has been a constant source of guidance and motivation. Former Ambassador Mr. Deepak Bhajwani and Dr. Ash Narayan Roy, Director, Institute of Social Sciences, have been very gracious in sharing their special remarks on the trilateral cooperation. Special gratitude and appreciation also goes out to the Indian Express, NewsX, Mr. Jose Antonio, Director La Liga, Professor Dr. Sandra Joseph, Principal Jesus and Mary College, and Global Youth India for their valuable inputs. Lastly, I would like to thank special team members who assisted with the implementation of the project and editing of the magazine. The support team includes Ms. Sania Karna, Instituto Cervantes, Mr. Akash from Alliance Francaise de Delhi, Ms. Sargam Arora from Embassy of Colombia, and Ms. Simran Kazania from Embassy of Chile. And lastly, Ms. Garima, Editor-in-Chief. Additionally, I thank the authors and members for their contribution to the magazine. Next, we have from the coordinator's desk and editor-in-chief's desk about the events: opening ceremony organized on 14th September at the Instituto Cervantes, Youth Commission conducted on 21st September at the Embassy of Colombia, case study competition held on 29th September at the Embassy of Chile, Fest organized with JMC on 15th of October, roundtable discussion held on 13th October at the Instituto Cervantes, followed by a special series of interviews with the ambassadors from Chile, Colombia, the Dominican Republic, Mexico, and Spain, which were conducted in both physical and online mode. To mark the beginning of the submissions, we received 2 special entries. The first one is from Lakshmi Priya PV, Administrative Assistant at the Embassy of Costa Rica, New Delhi. And the second one is from Mr. Guillermo Chavez Conejo, Head of Press, Political Science, and Co-Currencies Affairs at the Embassy of Mexico, New Delhi. The submission is in a form of a Spanish poem titled Dosti, and the Hindi translation of the poem has been done by Dr. Noreen Khan. Lastly, students from across the globe have shared their perspectives in the form of research articles, stories, and illustrations. I hope that this endeavor would inspire more people to engage in research and materialize the true aim of the project. Happy reading to all our readers. The magazine will be shared with everyone via newsletters and social media platforms of the embassies and cultural institutions. Coming on to the next part of today's event, we have a short video. Unique Eulat for the Way Forward, started in April, has an illustrious history marked by the numerous achievements through various events held in the months of September and October. Today, let me take you on a visual tour of the project to witness some of its glorious moments of the project and the vibrant culture that has been shared with everyone.
So the idea, as I said, is through a carefully curated agenda, which we wish to bring together young people to reflect on the possibilities of a better understanding between these 2 important geographical areas.
Learning Spanish is one way, learning Portuguese is one way, but actually visiting the country and participating is going to be the way we can encourage our youth to get to know these countries. It's happened before and it can happen again.
Eulat for culture, I think that can help in showcasing what brings us together, to forge connections that work for people and the planet.
India, obviously, as I was already much better explained by the speeches before, but I would like to stress that really it's true that the economic dimension, even if I think that the culture is more important than the GDP, the economic dimension is, you're totally right, a very important element.
First, the people-to-people relationships that are very important into building up later relationships. And second, that the focus is on youth. And if we are thinking of what we have done and what we could do, it is especially important to focus on youth.
India is increasingly perceived as a global giant with a rising middle class and may soon rival that of the United States or any power in the world.
Diplomacy, undeniable, plays a very important and growing role in international relations. It allows countries to engage with a wide variety of actors and to share their country's values, institutions, and foreign policy.
I think that the name of the project, of the program that has been chosen, The Way Forward, I think that basically tells us all what our agenda should be, because that's really where we have to go. We have to move forward.
The idea is to try to put aside this idea of nation and to put in front the reflection about values and at the end about democracy. That's the reason why I can be here with my colleagues.
Youth Commission. The discussion for the Commission was centered around educational and job opportunities available in Europe, Latin America, and India. The event acted as a networking session for both the national and international students who joined us from Europe and Latin America. Case study competition. The competition was based on the established theme of environment and sustainability with an endeavor to trace the path of sustainable development undertaken by the Latin American countries, the Indian community, and the European counterparts within an embedded context of complementary and comparable trajectories of economic growth and a broader ethos of socio-economic development. Roundtable discussion. The discussion was a platform for academicians and ambassadors to extensively engage in a discussion focusing on trilateral relations and put forth solutions and policies for fostering the multilateral relations. The fest began with soccer tournament which was led by Alliance Francaise and the sports department of Jesus and Mary College, University of Delhi. A total of 12 teams participated in the tournament. The fest was a one-day event wherein the embassies, educational institutions, cultural institutions, and youth got a chance to partake in various activities through interactive stalls in the form of games, exhibitions, photo booths, etc.
We certainly love these glimpses of this esteemed project. To take you through the musical symphony, I would like to again invite Mr. Aditya.
Okay, so I'll be playing a piece from Spain this time. It's called Capricho Árabe, or the English translation would be Arabic Caprice. We all know that south of Spain was ruled by Arabs for more than 700 years, and it has those Arabesque elements, I would say. And it's written by one of the most famous composers for the Spanish guitar, from a composer from Valencia. His name was Francisco Tárrega. So, Capricho Árabe by Francisco Tárrega. Yeah, but I think me being Indian suffices for that. Okay. So my last piece would be a tango from Argentina. Yeah, it's by a very famous composer called Astor Piazzolla, and he was from Buenos Aires, and he created a new style called Nuevo Tango or New Tango, mixing elements of jazz and folkloric music, folk music with the traditional tango. And that was heavily criticized when he did it. But years later, his legacy continues, and he's regarded as as the creator of the style Nuevo Tango, the New Tango. And the name of this piece, my final piece, is Verano Porteño. Porteño is a Spanish word that is used to refer to the people who live in the port. Here, referring to the people from Buenos Aires, que son porteños. Yeah, exactly. From Uruguay also. But yeah, in this case, in this piece, he wrote it for the people of Buenos Aires, but obviously because he was Argentine. But yeah, but thanks for that information. I had skipped it. Okay. Well, I learned something new today, so thanks a lot. Thank you. So, yeah, okay, I didn't read that much, I guess. Okay, so thank you. So, and he wrote 4 pieces, each for a different type of climate. So he has Invierno Porteño, which refers to the winter, Verano Porteño, Otoño Porteño, and Primavera Porteña. So this piece refers to the Buenos Aires summer of 1962, if I'm not wrong. So Verano Porteño by Astor Piazzolla. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Aditya, for an astounding performance. To culminate this enriching experience, I invite Dr. Oscar Pujol, Director of Instituto Cervantes, to address the gathering with his closing remarks.
Well, thanks, Ayushi. Well, it's a great pleasure really to see that what we just a few months ago thought as an idea has become a full reality. And that really all the activities that we planned took place in a wonderful way. I will not now mention again all the entities, we have done that, but I would like to say a few thanks which are due, and to start with, to Stefan and Alliance Française for having us here, to Mitushi, who has been tirelessly working behind the scene to make this possible. Thanks very much again, Stefan and Alliance Française. Thanks to all EUNIC members here, which are, many of them are here today, because EUNIC is a reality and it is working so smoothly with so many different programs that I am really very proud of what we are achieving as European Union National Institutes of Culture. And of course, I would really like to ask from you a double round of applause for Ayushi Kapoor. Ayushi. Because, this was put together very quickly, because there was a call from EUNIC Global and for AECID, which is the Spanish Agency for Cooperation, and that was done in February. We had very little time to present the project. I remember having interacted with Global Youth and with Ayushi especially, and I thought, okay, that's a good thing to do with Global Youth and with Ayushi. She came, she put forward the whole program in front of us, and everything has been done. That's really in a very short span of time, with a lot of precision and with so many partners. I'm really thrilled because we were not alone. We were all through with all our friends from Latin America, from Europe, from India, all the young people from Global Youth, and that's been really a wonderful experience. I would like to say that this is not the end. This is the beginning. And I know that Ayushi is planning to go abroad, but I hope that people from Global Youth and other young organizations will take, And I think we really should take our main lesson for us who are heading institutes of culture and embassies is to continue to support youth and to support the exchange of views between youth from our three continents, from America, Europe, and India, of course. And I won't be too long. Just one last message. While we were putting together this program, I saw many news in the Spanish press, in the European press, saying that the European Union was realizing that he wanted to come nearer to Latin America. And that's a priority for the European Union. And they've been saying that maybe we've been a little bit absent for the last years, and we want to retake and to deepen the relation with Latin America. We have seen Dr. Jai Shankar also traveling to Latin America. So it seems that Latin America is attracting a lot of attention. from two very old continents like Europe and Asia, no? In this case, India. No? But what I think, that Latin America is very important to the world now. And you are not important because you have the biggest, lot of resources, you have a lot of sweet water and forest and minerals and such a wealth which is unparalleled in any other part of the country. No, you are not important to us because of that. What you are truly important, I think, for the world is to find a proper strategic balance. And to build a really multipolar world, Latin America has to come forward to balance his powerful northern neighbor and to come together with countries and civilizations that are very old, but they keep constantly renewing themselves. India is an example of a renewal from a very old civilization. And I would like to think that Europe is also an example that we are trying to renovate ourselves in spite of being also having a very, so just to finish it, please, let's carry this forward. All of us, embassies, national institutes of culture, let's think of more projects to bring together youth from our three continents and to make a future who is really multipolar, multicultural, free from war, and having, youth at the root of this new communication. So let's carry on the way forward and continue with this set of programs, to bring together our three continents. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Oscar. Now I would like to invite all the dignitaries.
Yes. One last thing. This video is not finished, okay? This video that you saw has still to put what is happening today. And I was also forgetting, because I gave thanks to many people, but I would like also to thank one very special person two very special persons that's been, behind the scenes. But they've done a lot of work and perhaps they haven't been mentioned enough. One is Sania, is here, Sania Karna. Big applause for her. She is the author of the video. She's been recording everything. She's been making the photographs. And also I would like to thank Martí Bassets. He's there. He's the cultural manager of Instituto Cervantes. And also many people from the Instituto Cervantes that are not here today, like Chanchal, Shilpi, Christian, who is also there. Thanks for being with us. I was forgetting that, but you've been all the time with us. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Oscar, for your remarks. Now I would like to invite all the dignitaries for a group picture.